awesome. So it's good to see some of you. I know of some of you and have never met you, Brian Jones. And I know many of you from many years. Mike Rue and I were networking 20 years ago in Fitchburg. We built this group called FB&G, and we were seeing each other every week, then every other week, and then never again, it feels like. And I had a one-to-one with Maureen, just like, I feel like it was like 3 weeks ago, right? And Sheldon and I had talked. So David and I have chatted many times. It's really good to see all of you. Just a quick background. For over 16 years, I ran a digital marketing agency in Gardner, Mass. Called In Concert Web Solutions. And I sold that company in 2018 to one of my employees for 7 figures and walked away. At the very next day, I became a full-time professional speaker, traveling the country, talking about how to get more word-of-mouth referrals in a service-based business. That was my focus. And in 2018, I released a book called More: Word-of-Mouth Referrals, Lifelong Customers, and Raving Fans. It's 45 different tips and tricks on how to stay in touch with other people, which I found was the biggest problem. I think many of you would agree that people choose your company and your service because they can't get hold of their current provider. It's the number one reason. It's not really customer service. Everybody, it's customer service. We're great. But that's determined by past customers, not new prospects, right? And so the reality is if you dig deeper, you'll find that they're switching to you because they can't get hold of their current provider, because people aren't calling them back and they're not staying in touch. And it was a big problem in the digital marketing space, continues to be a problem, and it continues to be a problem in any service-based business because the systems and processes aren't set up in a way that allow solopreneurs and small business owners to sell the work and execute the work in a way that makes a lot of sense and is very efficient. In fact, what I have believed for a very, very long time is that small business owners leave the corporate world and go into this small business, create their own small business because they want 3 things: more money, more time, and more freedom. More money, more time, and more freedom. The problem is they don't get any of those 3 things in the first 5 years. And that's why you end up with the SBA statistic of so many companies that fail, right? The reason they don't get those things is because they take on all the wrong clients. Because we see the red flags. I interviewed over 50 small business owners for my new book. And in those conversations, I heard it time and time again, but I had to take the client because I needed the money, because I have bills to pay. I have mortgages to pay. I have kids to feed, families to feed. And I don't know when the next job is coming in. So even though I see these red flags, I can't refuse the work. And so what I did was I wrote this book through the pandemic called The High Five Effect: How to Do Business with People Who Bring You Joy. I have always believed that if we surround ourselves with quality people, we will get quality clients. And in fact, I wrote in my first book that people don't do business with who they know, like, and trust. They do business with who they know, like, trust, and care about. And the caring component is an up-leveling component, because you can like someone and not really care about their success. And people can like you and not, quote unquote, care about your success. It's the caring component that goes a step deeper. And when you get that caring component, now you'll surround yourself with quality people, people that do in fact bring you joy. And by surrounding yourself with those people, they attract similar types of personalities, which result in a higher level of joy in your life, which means you can charge more. You have more time available because you're charging more, and you have more freedom in your business. I live my life now by the definition of freedom. I do what I want, when I want, where I want, and how I want. So those of you connected to me on Facebook know that I am a passionate ATV person. I own a few side-by-side ATVs, that dune buggies that ride in the in the woods of New England, and I take these things all over the country. I've taken them to Idaho. I've I take them to my house in Florida. I do all kinds of stuff. And recently I organized a trip, and I'm just going to pull up a photo for you here and share it with you. But I organized a trip of 9 people to go to the Grand Canyon. And we were out there for 4 days, a full digital detox. And when I say full digital detox, when we got to Utah to pick up the machines and the camping gear and all of that stuff, they took our phones and they put them in a box and they locked the box. And you might say, well, what about an emergency? Yeah, we had a satellite phone. No big deal. Right. So we could get in and out if we needed to. The reality is that if we can build our business in a way that we have the freedom to do what we want, then we can make better choices. This is a photo of the group of, it turns out it was guys. It wasn't meant to be a guy trip, but there are 13 people here, 4 of which we did not know. 9 of us flew out there on different flights. We came from all over the country. Of the 9 of us that are sort of in the middle there, not a single person knew everyone. I only knew 4 people of the 9. I organized the trip. I invited a friend. He invited a friend. That guy invited a friend. And we spent 4 days out there. And there's nothing better. I mean, you probably experienced it yesterday with the outage of Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. You're like, oh my goodness, what's it like without my phone? And I'll tell you, the first couple hours, you're like, oh, it's a little bit more painful. But as time goes by, you start to realize there's a lot more freedom. And so I'm at the point now in my consulting practice and my coaching practice when it comes to referrals that when people ask me, how much I charge, I have a set fee. And for me, it's not about the money. I've had a client say to me, hey, listen, Matt, I'd like a meeting every Monday at 2 p.m. and I'll pay you double what you charge. I'm not interested in that because it blocks my calendar for the future. So I work in an unlimited capacity with my clients, and they can call me whenever they want. And they can book a meeting, sure, maybe 4 or 5 days out, but I'm not booking weeks and weeks and weeks out. Why? Because I like to boat like David Allen does. I like to ride my side-by-side anywhere I can take it in the country. And I'm a professional speaker, so I might be on a stage or on a plane, and I don't want to turn down a gig to do a half-hour phone call, consult call, when I can do that later on, right? And so when you define for yourself what freedom actually is, what joy you have, right? I don't have kids of my own, so I like to travel. Not everybody wants to do that. Not everybody wants to live the road warrior life that I live, splitting time between 2 states, being in the woods with no phone access. Not everybody wants to do that. That's not the life that they want to live. But the life that you want to live is defined by you. And once you figure out what that is and where you want to spend the time, the effort, the energy, you'll start to pick a lot better clients. You'll start to push away the ones that are not ideal. You'll start to push away the ones that pay you less and call you more. Because if you think about how many clients you actually need, it's not that many. And so in this book, I did a little reimagination of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And it's the client acquisition hierarchy of needs. And in here, I talk a little bit about the different stages that we go through to actually get to the point of joy. And the first one is survival mode, which is that's the mode we're in, where we're taking every client we absolutely need to, right? And we're in that mode because we haven't figured out who our ideal client is. So I talk about that in the book. And then the second stage is security, which is where do we feel comfort enough? Where do we feel the level that we can start pushing away a client? And I basically have said that the goal to get out of security stage is to get and earn a predictable amount of revenue every month. The minute you're earning a predictable amount of revenue every single month, now you can push away clients without the fear of not being able to pay your bills. And many of you are in a role where you're consulting with other business owners. You're advising them on the growth of their business. And that is a key point that these service-based business providers really need to understand, whether they're a solopreneur or maybe, less than 10, 20 employees. It's that predictable amount of revenue that gives them the comfort, the strength, the fortitude to actually push away a bad client, to see the red flags and not ignore them. There's a whole chapter in the book I talk about trusting your gut and listening to your gut, really. Because many of you went to college. I didn't go to college, but many of you that went to college, you didn't enroll in Gut 101. There was no class on trusting your gut for business school, right? But what you all have learned over the years of being in business was that you should have listened to your gut back when it was telling you it was a bad situation, right? And we've all had that bad client. We've all had the client that didn't pay, or that ran out on us, or was problematic on the phone. We've all had that. And yet every single time when I interviewed 50 small business owners, every single time they told me they knew it was going to happen before it happened. Every single time. And so we just have to learn to listen to our gut a little bit more, right? So raise your hand briefly if you've ever read a book by Mike Michalowicz. He's written many of them: Profit First, Pumpkin Plan, Surge. He's a perennial small business author. And I was fortunate enough to have Mike endorse the book. And he says, the essence of a joyful business is working with the right clients who bring you joy. Matt's book shows you how to do exactly that. Additionally, I got, probably 30 other endorsements, but one was from small business, a solopreneur, sort of influencer, Ramon Ray of smarthustle.com. And he said, there are a lot of business books on the tactics of business success. Matt's book gives you that and more. He speaks to the heart of how to have joy in growing your business. Matt's a guy who brings joy to those around him and will help you bring joy and a smile to you as you run your business. So some great endorsements. And it's one of those things where I just believe, when I end my keynote speech on the referrals, I always talk about this idea that when we're doing business with people we know, like, trust, and care about, it should be to the point where we can high five them. We can walk down any hallway in any business, at any conference, at any chamber event, networking event, anything that's happening, and just literally high five the person. When you do that, your emotion is at a higher level. It's at a joyous level. A high five is not a handshake. It's a celebratory move, right? I encourage you, even though it's COVID, I encourage you to try this over the next week. Simply walk by someone and put up your hand like you're going to high five them and watch what happens. They will reciprocate and they will smile, because that's what it does. And the more that we can do, the more successful we can be in business by surrounding us with the people that uplift us, like Jim Rohn said. So, like I always say on every video I produce every week, don't forget to live happy, smile a lot, and high five everyone around you. All right, let's open it up for questions, Joe.
Sounds good. Does anybody have questions?
Yeah, I got a quick one. Who took the picture at the Grand Canyon if you didn't have any phones?
Great question. Because it was a digital detox and because it's a guided trip where they supply us with everything except sleeping bags and ground pads, which we brought, and clothes, they provide a videographer and a photographer on the entire trip. They took over 600 photos. We got those already. The video is coming in about 2 more weeks. So yeah, it's that's what it is. And I think there's like 600 photos of all of us doing all kinds of different things, including they took pictures of the food, So this is gourmet food out there. Like, this is stuff I would never order off a menu, but it was really good. really good. So it was a good time. It was a bucket list trip for me for sure. And I'll most certainly be going back. They offer another one to Zion National Park and Bryce Canyon. And that's also a 4-day, 3-night trip. So here is, this is literally, these are the sandwiches they made on day 2. By the way, that's a good looking sandwich right there. Let's see if it'll load here. There you go.
Ooh.
I mean, that's out in the middle of the wilderness. Bacon on there, sunny side. I mean, that is incredible.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
Matt, I have a question, Matt.
Yeah.
So what would, in terms of getting the new client, keeping the client, what's the number one tool or media you use or recommend using to get or keep clients?
So, okay. So I guess I would separate that into 2 questions. The first one is how do I acquire clients? I do it all through networking. I always have, and I always will. It's all the relationship-based stuff. And I use a series of touch points. I use email. Sometimes I use text, depending on who the person is. But most of the time, I'm using email to just touch base and stay in touch with people. And then now with the resurgence of Zoom during the pandemic, I do a lot of one-to-ones. So I tell people all the time, if you want more referrals, do 15 or more 30-minute one-to-ones every single week. That will produce a lot of referrals for you. Now, remember that the work you do now pays off in 6 months. So you're going to do 15 one-to-ones, which is, I don't know what that is, divided by 2. It's like 7 hours or something. I don't know what it is. But if you did 2 a day, 2 30-minute calls a day for 5 days, that's going to be 10, right? And if you sustain that for 4 or 5 weeks, you're going to see results from that long term. But you also have follow-up points after those calls, right? You have to serve other people. You have to provide for others. You have to not ask for the referral. You have to give, right? Give introductions, not necessarily referrals, but you got to definitely give introductions. And then you got to know who you're going after. So I never believe you should be asking in networking events. You should never ask for referrals. You should never ask for the end client. You should always ask for the referral source and the person that's going to refer you on a regular basis. Most people think that their referrals come from their clients because they got a good one, or that's the one they remember, right? But in reality, clients refer 1 to 3 people over a lifetime. Partners refer 1 to 3 people a year. Right. So Mike should be constantly focusing on web developers and people in the financial area who can refer the credit card type stuff to him. Right. And so this is the common thing with Maureen going after the IT professionals consistently all the time. I had 35 partners that were sending us business when I sold the agency. And of the 35, I'd say 32 were IT professionals that did break fix computer work, managed IT services. And I don't think a single one of those actually hired us to do their website. So they weren't even a client referring, right? So the big key is once you create a relationship or you make an introduction or you build that relationship, then you have to continuously stay in touch. So I liken it to this, Joe, real simple. How do you outrun a bear?
You don't.
Yeah, you don't. You outrun your friend, right?
That's right.
And in business, you outrun your competition. It's your job to stay one touch point ahead of every other person in your market with that partner. And if you do that, you get far more business than you could possibly imagine. And it's not hard. The basic email I would send is, hey, just checking in. How's business? And eventually people would be like, this dude's weird. Like early on, they would just think that's the weird, they would not respond. And then after 3 times of doing that every other month, they eventually would start to respond. And they just know that that's who I am. I'm just always checking in, and I'm never leading with, hey, how's business? By the way, do you need some web services? No, never say that. I would never say that. In fact, at one time I had the director of a chamber say to me, hey, you know a lot of people. Do you know anybody that does websites? And I'm like, we're a web company. What are you talking about? Because I never talked about what we did.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah. So just stay in touch. That's the number one resource for getting new clients.
Okay, hey, man, can you talk to everybody about just your experience with YouTube? We made it a focus for a couple of years and did a bunch of videos, and just for everybody else that's out there.
Sure. So people ask me all the time, I see your YouTube channel. Does it work? I said, what do you mean? Does it work? Well, does it get you business? Well, no, not one person is clicking on a buy button on YouTube and buying my thing, right? However, it does work. So every Tuesday at 2 p.m., I send out an email. Every Tuesday at 2 p.m., I send out an email. It's got a 3 to 5 minute video clip in it on networking tips and referrals. It is something I've seen, like the don't eat on the Zoom call, show up early on the Zoom call, whatever it might be, right? In every single week, I get at least one email reply talking about the video. I get at least one comment on social, wherever I post it. And I get at least one comment on YouTube. So to me, that's what works, right? So if you take a piece of content and you put it out there and then you share it on social, it's in the email, it's on social, it's on YouTube, it's everywhere it can be, right? You might be able to unsubscribe from my email address, but you are not going to consciously uncouple from me because I got my tentacles in there. They're everywhere, right? So you're going to see Matt Ward all the time. And that's how I utilize YouTube, right? I was writing a blog for 2 years straight every Sunday, and I got tired of writing. And so I transitioned to the YouTube thing. I'm not making money from YouTube, ad optimization or anything like that. I got to have 1,000 subscribers. I got to have a bunch of watch time. I'm not there yet. But maybe someday that'll be there. But right now it's just a video platform, and I integrate it with my email every week. And then I make sure my team shares it on social so that there's activity going around that. Because once you produce a piece of content, if you don't share it out there, if you don't get it out to the world in some form or fashion, it's of no value. So it's about repurposing the content as much as you can. We internally we call it the machine. We drop the thing in the top, and out the bottom comes the result type of thing. So we built the machine in the process. And it took a while, right? We tweak it all the time. But it's about improving it as we go.
Matt, I'd really like to thank you for taking the time to come out and chat. If you have additional questions for Matt, you can certainly hit him up in the chat room or afterwards. The book is The High Five Effect. Matt has put a link in the chat room if you want to check it out and pick up a copy. I know I'm going to. Again,
4 or 5 for your friends,
or 5.
Get extra bonuses.
5 is a good number, right?
Yeah, 5.
There we go. So thank you. Again, for our guests, we have a speaker every meeting. Typically, it's somebody from the group. I'm going to stop the recording here just so Sheldon can say bad words when he does his presentation.